Jason Stoddard, your host Brian Hunter here at the SchiitR in downtown Newhall. Jason, how are you? And we like to start these streams out here on the West Coast with, what wine are you drinking today?
I have no idea.
Oh, right.
Denise actually did a blind wine thing. It's like 2 Texas wines, 2 California wines. I don't know. I suspect it is a Texas wine. But okay. Anyway, yeah, it is. But we're equal opportunity drinkers. You know, Texas and California are both perfectly fine. So.
Well, we like to get together out here at the SchiitR and do comparisons, and the wine is no exception to that. We often do wine blind ABs and find out our own different winners. That's the science of it all, I think, that we like in the process, right? So I just kind of wanted to kick it off today with, a really simple kind of ask how things are going at Schiit. What's new? What's going on? Give us the download there, and then we'll get to more of why we are gathered here today to that kind of focus. But what's going on at Schiit?
Can we start with essentially? Yeah, we like to compare stuff when it works.
Yeah.
Oh God, let's start with that actually.
Okay.
So I built this as Sin versus Atoms. My silly play on Atmos. We got a decent mid-range, Denon receiver to compare it to. We actually had it all up and running and working and just fine at Schiit. Unfortunately, that was with a Vizio TV. So we wanted to use one of the fancy OLEDs here. And guess what? It lets you either have only surround out or only 2-channel out. Sin needs 2-channel, the Denon needs surround. So we're going to have to do the immediate blind AB at a future date. People are going to have to settle for listening to Sin, and maybe we can set up a comparison later if they really feel like it. But everyone's going to know what's playing. There's not going to be any mystery. And again, I almost just changed this to, let's Office Space that fucking Denon. Because it perfectly illustrated why we did Sin. It's massively complicated. It's a pain in the ass. It doesn't work in all systems. It is completely opaque what it is doing. You have to actually use the screen to set it up. You have no idea what the heck it's doing on the front panel because it only has 2 knobs and like 4 buttons. The remote it looks like a 1989, wireless telephone, with 8,000 buttons on it. It's horrible. Sin, here's what you do. You plug the optical out of the TV and the Sin. You plug that shit in your amps, you go, boom, it's done. That's how easy it was. That's why we did Sin, because this is stupid. I think that actually the standard 5.1 stuff may be training people that surround is horrible, so let's not deal with it. It doesn't have to be that way. That's why we did Sin. Anyway, sorry. It's been a interesting setup, and we will come back to this. And in 2 months when I'm back, we will figure out a way to do an automatic switching. We'll bring the other TV, which is quite a bit shittier than the LG we have here, but works. And we'll do a proper instant blind demo. For right now, it's not instant, it's not blind, but you get to listen to Sin, and we will keep the Denon. We will not Office Space it unless someone wants to, buy it. And anyway, sorry.
And for those of you who don't know the Office Space scene, you need to go check it out because it's a great one.
Yeah, it involves
classic of like all times, if you ask me.
It involves a printer, not an AVR, but similar feelings. Anyway.
What's the phrase that it keeps the error? It gives like an error code the whole time that just gets him so frustrated.
Oh yeah, it's like Oh, PC load letter.
PC load letter. That's the one.
PC load letter. Yeah.
PC load letter.
Yeah. Oh God, yeah. And actually, the Denon has that same kind of like scrolling little display that it only shows a few things, and it's like Dolby, and then at multi-channel, and then it scrolls, and I'm like, oh. Please shoot me now. Anyway, yeah, and that's all right. I know a bunch of people are going to give a shit for our little hieroglyphic, LED-based thing. And fair, got it. But there's very few of those. And there's a whole bunch of crap that thing does. Anyway.
But we'll get to the details of how it all works a little bit later in the show. What? So let's
how's it going?
Yeah, how's it going?
Actually, it's the first normal year in a long time. As in audio, it's real simple. I hope you don't like Christmas because Christmas is super busy, and then it kind of persists through the first quarter, and then it just ends in end of March, and then it gets slow. So yeah, it's kind of slow, it's kind of boring. Not a lot of stuff happening. Any audio company that says, "Oh yeah, it's just like it was in 2021," they are smoking their lawn, or there's something wrong with them, or they have a magic formula, and kudos for that. But it is slower than it has been in a long time. It's fine. We'll be fine. We had our sale last year, our one sale in 13 years. It doesn't look like we'll need to actually redo that. As far as new products, hey, I'm bored, so I do new products. And yeah, I know people have asked about Mjolnir 3. Mjolnir 3 is coming very quickly. In fact, I almost brought what is the production board, but it's not in a chassis. I don't want anyone to electrocute themselves, so I didn't. Erd's coming very soon. We actually have the boards in-house, which is the final piece of the puzzle. Both those might be June-ish. Beyond that, oh boy. I think I kind of outlined the stuff we were going to do this year, and Erd and Mjolnir 3 finish it. I managed to sneak in a couple of new fun things. Can't really say what they are yet, but I think you'll be pleasantly surprised on both counts, and we'll see how those go. In general, situation normal. I make things, I design things, and other people figure out how to make them, and we go from there.
One of the questions about the Erd, though, is that will silver be one of the colors?
Hilariously, we actually had to send a bunch of silver tops to get repainted black for Erd because we had 249 silver and 1 black. I'm not making that up. So there will be a mix of silver and black. Silver is safe.
Someone actually, I think maybe we could hit this right off the bat. Someone asked what those speakers are. You know what those are doing? What is that?
Oh boy, I really wish I recall. They're a really nifty little surprising desktop/bookshelf type of speaker. I don't recall all of the details of that.
I'll put it up on Facebook.
Yeah, Denise,
I'll put it up on Facebook.
please.
I don't recall the exact name, and I'd like to get it right.
But they're actually for sale, right? Because they could almost be a custom job.
No, they are they do custom work.
Yeah,
Yes.
they do custom work, and Denise should be able to get the
I'll
details on that.
I'll get the details and put it on Facebook. I'll post it.
Yep.
Okay, are we ready for sin? Or
Sure. I'm always ready for sin.
Always ready for sin.
I'm drinking wine, so to some that's a sin. Yeah. Everyone has their thing. It's cool.
One of the things that you guys have always talked about, I think, if you're here on the live stream and you follow the company, you know that you and Mike Moffat have often complained endlessly about surround sound and the codecs. You guys have never really been a big fan. So I think that a lot of the fans, and myself included, were surprised when we saw you guys come out with the surround sound product. Can you kind of walk us through what that thought process was and how you came to tackle this one hurdle that you really haven't tackled before?
Great question. Also, it comes back to almost all standards. I have a chapter coming out on this, but standards, they giveth and they taketh away. The promise of standards are there will be one thing that everyone supports and everyone benefits. Well, the problem is there's almost never one thing. It's always here's the start. Because let's use a politically neutral example. USB. Okay. Yeah. So you had USB. You had USB A, USB B, USB C. Now you have USB. You had USB 1, 1.1, 2, 3. Now they're up to 4, and there's various flavors of 3. USB-C is supposed to be the be-all, end-all, except I defy you to actually tell me what how should you actually terminate the shield on a USB-C cable at the endpoint? There's a lot of engineers who have a lot of opinions on that. But guess what? It's not in the spec. That's USB. That's something that's totally universal. It is probably truly a benefit that to have, something that is standardized there. And then you have all the flavors of Dolby, which has gone, through the years. HDMI is much worse. In fact, one of the problems that kept us from doing this is HDMI incompatibilities.
Okay.
So HDMI, they have a thing called Plug Fest every year. They go together and they see what works with other things. This is what the manufacturers have to do. This is not the standards body. That's a standard, I've been asked a lot about MQA. Let's throw that in there because early on MQA, we put out a press release said we're having nothing to do with this, and a lot of people went kind of crazy and said this is, you're nuts. You're giving up, all this opportunity. Your customer's going to ask for it. And it's like, yeah, that's nice. That's nice. That's nice. That's nice. And guess what? We spent zero time on it. As far as I can tell, we lost zero sales because DACs sell great. And now it's dead. And someone's going to go and say, oh, it's not dead. They're only in reorganization. Yeah, because, from a formerly bankrupt company is a wonderful selling line. Mm-hmm. It's dead. Let's just say it. It's dead. So, we don't like standards. We think they basically take away, or they can take away from your purpose in business, which is to do really fantastic products, really fantastic services. You're basically chasing someone else's idea. So that's why we never did a surround processor, because then you actually have to engage in Dolby Digital, Dolby Atmos. In the past, you'd have to do DTS and a bunch of other guys too. And it's a lot of work. I have great respect for people that can actually do it. Emotiva does a fantastic job of it. Mm-hmm. A bunch of companies do a fantastic job of it. It's not us. And I got an opportunity because my big expensive surround processor died one day. And I'm like, okay, well, contact the company. We'll send out another one. Don't worry about it. And in the meantime, I'm like, that simple surround idea that Mike and I have talked about probably for 40 years of like, let's do a matrix processor, but do it really well, do very high quality, something you could run an Yggdrasil into because it's not going to get A-D'd. It's not going to get processed. You can actually run the front channels unprocessed and then just add to it. Let's do that. And, waited for a new processor to come around. Long story short, it never did. So I'm like, yeah, that's fine. I'll do a prototype of this little surround thing. And I put it in the system. I'm like, yeah, this is actually not bad. This is really not horrible. And, a few iterations later, it was actually so good. I'm like, why am I bothering with even chasing this at all? And so literally, okay, setting up the Denon is like this horrible nightmare of screens and stuff and microphones and HDMI cables and where do you plug this and where do you plug that and which is first and which is second, and et cetera. It's nightmarish. Here's the sin. You take a sin, you put an optical cable from your smart TV, because let's face it, everyone has a smart TV, into the sin, and you hook up your amps, and you're done. That's it. That's the whole fucking thing. All your fucking, video sources go into the TV, where they should, and then it outputs optical. Okay, so someone's going to say, I have a projector. Yeah, I have a projector too. I use an HDMI D embedder. It's a thing. You can look that up. So that splits out optical from it. Other people are going to say, well, I have a ton of sources or I have an old TV. And it's like, yeah, then it gets more complicated. But SYN is designed for, the 99% of real world applications there are right now, which is people sitting in front of a smart TV, usually with no other sound. They might have a sound bar, but they're probably listening to the smart TV sound. This is something you just plug in, and you hook up a fairly minimal number of channels. You could even choose, I don't want surround. I don't want a center. You don't need to have that. Or you can do 5 channels. You can do a sub. And so you get into surround very easily. And it sounds very good. And if you don't like the DAC and the Syn, stack it on top of a Bifrost too. Stack it on top of an Iggy if you're really nuts. It will not hold the Iggy back. That's why we did it. We also throw in a bunch of other features because a lot of the guys that work for us are gamers, and they're like, well, leave the USB in because I want to do gaming in surround. A lot of people are still using headphones, and plus I sometimes watch things late at night. I don't want to irritate anyone, so I use headphones. And so we did our first headphone implementation that includes crossfeed, and it's variable, so you can actually change it on the fly. So you can have a headphone system, you can have a gaming system, you can have a surround system, or let's face it, it's a remote-controlled DAC preamp. So if you have a simple system and you just want a really easy to use DAC and preamp combo, there you go. You're done. You can use that with stereo and not even worry about it. So Syn does a lot of things. That's part of, I think, essentially the confusion about it is that it does a lot of things. And it's okay to use it for one. I use one in a home theater, one in a media room, and I use one on a desk. I'm not saying don't go out and buy three. You don't you don't need to buy any of them. Actually, if you're doing a large screen media room or theater, you may want to even ask yourself, just why not maybe stereo? If you're sitting in the center and you have a good stereo system, you don't really need to worry about surround all that much. In fact, it sounds really good. That's what I used in the interim between the processor and Syn. So, anyway, it's a lot of people are going to go, well, Atmos has unique positioning and 3D spatial and blah, and I'm like, yeah, it's nice. And guess what? You're looking at a flat screen. So.
Yeah, the 3D TV didn't really make it the long stretch, did it?
Yeah, it didn't. And here's the thing: if I can go, oh, hey, that effect is 4 feet and 18 inches, behind me, and I'm looking at a flat screen, a lot of times like, oh, that's right, it's fake. You kind of you lose the immersion. Yeah. So that's why I'm like, maybe start with stereo. The reason I did Syn is it allows you to have a center channel. You can actually, keep the center instead of it shifting off to the side if you aren't like sitting right in the very center, and it does give you the ambiance, of surround. None of that's super necessary, to enjoy screen content as far as I'm concerned. But I'm crazy. And a lot of people go, no, you got to do Atmos and multi-channel mixes, and they got Atmos that is, it's actually audio. It's like music. And I'm like, cool, what kind of music? And they're like, oh, it's like Pink Floyd. I'm like, wow, Atmos is way more advanced than I thought because they sent back people in time to record Pink Floyd, as a multi-channel. Oh, no, they derived it. I'm like, oh, so exactly what Syn's doing. Cool. That's nice. I like $400 rather than redoing my whole system.
Yeah, I think too that at least for me, being a diehard 2-channel guy these days, the surround sound provides nice tricks. But when you have like a really well-crafted image in the front of you and dynamics, I feel like over the long haul, it's more meaningful, you could say, than just having something go overhead once in a blue moon, or have a LFE a low effect go boom, exclusive of the rest of the frequency spectrum. Right. Cool tricks. Is it as valuable over the length of a movie as just really good others?
And that's the decision someone has to make. So, a lot of people are going to say, yes, I absolutely want the precise positioning. I want the effects. There is an advantage to having, discrete surround channels, as far as localization. Mm-hmm. To me, it's never sounded all that fantastic. And and since I did Syn and, I can use a good DAC, I'm kind of like, I think I'd rather have that. It's softer. It's not as precise. But it does some fairly amazing stuff because the first time with Syn, I heard something go like side to side behind me. Yeah. Which it shouldn't be able to do. Right. I'm like, okay. So maybe we've been doing this whole surround thing wrong for a long time. And do yourself a favor. We'll get you on, listen to music on Syn.
He's referring to me, not everybody on the live stream. I want to be very clear about that, guys. Sorry.
Don't bother with the center channel. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And in fact, you may want to just leave the shaping out. Just do processing. Add the ambiance. Listen to music. Tell me what you think. You might be really, really surprised.
So I realize that the surround sound box includes some amount of secret sauce that we can't talk about. But the sauce that we can talk about, can we kind of get into that about how exactly 2 channels come in and multiple channels come out? What takes place in order to provide the illusion of surround sound that you've done specifically? And what, there's a couple of knobs on the front of that guy. What do the knobs do and affect the sound?
Yeah, and I think it's important. It's not an illusion. A lot of people said, "Oh, it's fake surround." I'm like, "What do you mean it's fake surround? It's as real surround as anything else out there." The way we get at it is different because we start with 2 channels. We end up with 5. How do we do that? Same way that Dolby Pro Logic did it way back when, actually pre-Dolby Pro Logic, the old matrix surround idea, which Dolby Pro Logic took from and then actually did a steered, that was the logic part where they'd actually bring the volume down on a channel that wasn't active to actively steer it around. We don't do that. Ours is pretty much pure matrix. That means it does a left minus right and a right plus left. So right plus left, or the 2 channels summed together, is your center channel. Not very exciting, right? Well, it gets exciting when you can pull the L plus R content out of the mains, which the width knob allows you to. So you can actually open that up and then you can localize the center. It gives a very solid center image. And if you've ever been like kind of off screen on a big screen, you're like, wait, how come everyone's talking about out of this speaker? That solves that problem. The L minus R is the surround or ambiance. It's the difference between left and right. We actually, when we do have a proprietary matrix, we mix things a little different. We have a little different algorithms, things like that. We do some frequency shaping on the surrounds and on the subwoofer output to kind of mimic a 0.1, LFE channel. It's, the result is something that does sound, kind of remarkably akin to what you call a typical surround system. And in fact, we've had a lot of people over to both our houses, and they're like, well, wait a minute, this is not like a surround receiver thing. And I'm like, do you even know where the word receiver comes from? That's like AM, FM days. It's like, why are we still using that word? Just throw it away. Anyway, sorry. But they're like, I wouldn't be giving up anything if I did this as surround. I'm like, right, that's the whole point. And so we have a new thing. This is our alternate, essentially our alternate history, our alternate, universe where we say you can do standard surround, or now you can do this standards-free, never going to be obsolete matrix thing, and trust us that it sounds pretty good. That's entirely up to everyone to decide, for themselves. I no longer have, $3,000 and $5,000 processors. I use Sin, and that I think I have been in home theater for 30 plus years. I've chased the dragon all the way, as far as you can, and I'm like, I'm done. This is fine. This is good. Is it going to give you, 4 inches, behind your left ear? No, it won't give you that. Will it give you a very, enjoyable experience where you can tell I'm in a big room, I'm in a small room, I'm claustrophobic, this is, et cetera? Yes, it'll do that, and you'll be able to hear the people talking to you, and you'll be able to control that because the other knob I didn't talk about is presence. It essentially brings voices forward or backwards and allows you to sync up the center channel and the mains. That's what we're doing. And we may be crazy, but so far it seems like people seem to really like it. They really like the little baby amps we brought out, which surprised the hell out of me. Who wants a 2-watt amp? Actually, I do. I use them all the time. But I'm surprised anyone else wants it. And this is the same thing. I'm like, wow, people are really enjoying this, it seems like. So it appears to be a product that has legs, and we'll see where it takes us.
Yeah, I think for me personally too, when I think about surround sound, you've addressed one of the big issues that I always have is why can't I get the voices to be clear, focused, and pulled out of the mix? Because I always thought when I set it up that if I had a center channel speaker that the voices would be perfectly from the mouths of the TV, and from my experience, really wasn't the case. And I love that you have a knob in there that'll bring the voices forward, because what I want is max.
It's funny because I wanted it the other way, because a lot of systems I've had, the guys who actually mix the center, apparently they love the speaking through a traffic cone thing. Yeah. So you have like the guy talking and then he's talking to you and then he's like, and I'm like, no, I don't want him yelling at me from the center channel. Please, can we turn down that artificial forwardness? And I actually usually keep it down. A lot of people do turn it up, and I totally get it. At lower volume, makes total sense. You want to listen to something late at night and not let everyone's ears bleed. Crank up the presence, and then you'll be able to understand them, and you don't have to have it at 8,000 dB.
Yeah, I always find it really interesting too that a lot of TVs, they tune the speaker itself to have lots of mid, so you don't so the clarity of the vocals there, and you don't have to volume up so much. But is part of the secret sauce or part of the knob addressing that part of the frequency spectrum, or is it more than that?
I think it's mainly just addressing the mix. To tell you, give you an idea of how deep I've gone into the home theater realm. My home theater actually has speakers that I built myself, and I've built and measured and tweaked and built and measured and tweaked and built and measured and tweaked for 30 years. And the latest iteration was like, I'm going to finally cure this forwardness in the mids on the center. And so I built it, rebuilt it, all new crossovers, new drivers, remeasured it. It is totally flat. It has that nice, perfect downward curve. It's fantastic. Still sounded like this. And I'm like, oh, it's the mix. And in a lot of cases, it is the mix, because they do want it to be intelligible, so they do move it forward. But it's very irritating to me. So it's like, I finally got Sin. I'm like, turn it down. I'm like, oh, okay, now we're talking. We can actually do this nice and seamless, but we can maintain a center if I don't want to sit, with my head bolted exactly in the center, between two speakers, which it's actually amazing. We have one system we use Zoo speakers. They image fantastically, but literally they image completely different if you do this or this. Like, yeah, that's exactly where you want a sin, and guess where one of the sins is? So with the center channel.
So you're saying that with that presence knob, you're able to articulate the idea that's closer to you or farther away, but you're saying it also can affect the imaging where it kind of lays it out more like evenly across the front, and that's one of the things you can fine tune. Are there any other things that you can fine tune with the knobs? And
no, but I think it's important to also note that if you want to do just stereo, you can pass through stereo without it being messed with at all, or you can just add channels. You can pass through the stereo completely unmolested.
Okay, let's pause a second. When you say that, what happens exactly? What channel? Where do the channels go? Just left and right, front and back?
Left and right, front. You can just
some in the middle.
Yeah, you can just pass left and right through and do nothing to them.
Oh, okay.
But then you can add channels too to that. You can actually go and say, I would like to have a center, and I'd like to have surround, without messing with the mains at all. It will not touch them. And so you could literally, you could have an Iggy, you could have a car price DAC, hooked up to it, whatever. It'll pass that right through. No problem at all. As soon as you hit shape, there's two modes. One is process, which is add channels, and one is shape, which is, okay, now we're going to start mixing things together. That will affect the mains. It's still quite transparent. But if you are a purist, and if you do not want to mess with, your car price DAC, that's one way to do it. And honestly, that's how I prefer music. When I listen to music, I usually have it just in process, and I just add channels, and I turn off the center.
What there's been a couple of questions in the mix here. What amps do you recommend to go with this thing?
Well, if you're not insane, you're probably not going to buy ours because we don't have any 5-channel amps. Hilarious.
5 tiers is what you're 5 tiers, I think is what he's saying.
Hey, if you got that kind of money, knock yourself out. We're actually using 5 wreckers here right now. Total 25 watts of screaming power. Total, through the whole system with ELAC, so not exactly the most efficient speaker either. Sounds fantastic, has plenty of volume. I'd be tempted to do Yowler horns when they come back in stock. Right now, I have one system that has 3 Vidars. One, essentially one is only using 1 channel, which sounds pretty good. And I have another system where I'm using an Emotiva 5-channel amp because there are other people that make multi-channel amps. It's totally cool to go and do that. Maybe we'll do a multi-channel amp in the future. Given the results here, I think you can probably assume eventually we will. But as far as timing, let us get it right. Let us make sure it doesn't blow up. All that fantastic stuff.
Yeah. Let's see here. Okay. Did we talk about? Let's talk about maybe some of the more headphone and gaming applications of the Sim. You can obviously plug it in directly and use it as a headphone amp, right?
Yes.
From the jack. What kind of exact things can you do if you wanted to use it for gaming?
If you want to use it for gaming, you can actually use it either as a headphone device, and therefore you can either narrow the sound field or widen it up. If you widen it up, some people are saying, "Oh, it helps me hear things that are going on." Take that with a grain of salt. I have not actually used that. You also still have all the other controls, including presence, so you can actually increase the presence as well as do the width. You can also just use it as a straight headphone amp if that's what you want. A lot of people were saying they're actually starting to move the gaming stuff off the desktop and actually have it. They have rear speakers and a front. A lot of times they don't have front center, but they'll have 2 fronts and rear speakers, and then it's more immersive. So that's how we're seeing people use it for gaming. It can, I don't know how that's going to end up. I think we'll have to see what people tell us. And in terms of, as a headphone amp, it's like I said, it's our first headphone amp with crossfeed, which is really interesting because if you start summing back in, the L plus R content into each channel, that'll narrow essentially the sound field. And headphones are like, it's in your head. Mm-hmm. And it narrows it. And with the frequency shaping we're doing, we're not just summing it back together. If you plug in a headphone, it goes, hey, there's a headphone connected. It actually changes the frequency that are being summed back in, so it acts like crossfeed.
Okay.
So if you actually narrow it up, then it moves everything kind of out in front of you a bit. It sounds more like speakers. People who are more familiar with speakers tend to like headphones more like that. People who are more used to headphones tend to hate it. Personally, I think I really like the way it sounds. And in fact, when you turn off the crossfeed after you've been using it a while, it sounds really weird and like broken. So that's always a hallmark of something that if you can't do without it, it's interesting. So we'll see what we do with crossfeed in the future.
Yeah, I think you bring up an interesting point about the idea of being a purist, right? So we have I want the purest signal, and somehow that is going to be the best. Right. But I think a lot of times what we grapple with in this hobby is what is the perception. How heavy do we weigh our perception as being our purest form of what we want? And also, and I think for me, at least through my journey of audio, I like to experiment with different things. So if it's like, yes, you can bypass everything. It can be really pure. It can be how it's supposed to be in its most raw form. Mm-hmm. But I think that anybody who's actually looking at this product is one of the people that would like to tinker. Mm-hmm. And I would highly encourage that because I think tinkering is the essence of the hobby. and this is very obvious from the way you do things. Like you're doing a lot of 2-channel stuff here, but here you are willing and able to tinker with this sound and create these products because you want to explore what's possible and what can be done and fight and rage against the machine.
Yeah, we had a conversation. Well, no, we had a conversation right before this where the guy's like, "What happened to loudness controls?" And I'm like, and you think, "Oh, that's anathema. It's crazy. Why would you want it?" I'm like, "No, I think they actually should come back because they were based on psychoacoustic, phenomena that where your hearing is less sensitive to bass and treble at lower volumes, and so you press that button, and a well implemented loudness control would make it sound more natural at low volumes, and then it would taper off towards highs, and that's something that got lost, with bass, with treble, with all the other controls when we're searching for that purity.
Right.
Searching for the purity is fine. But you're also trusting that then every recording is perfect? I don't know about you. I mean, maybe some of the people watching us have never been to a recording studio. But if you have, and you've seen how the sausage gets made, true and perfect are subject to a lot of interpretation. Let's just put it that way. And that's why we started doing things like EQs, and then now we got SIN, which is maybe the ultimate heresy right now. We'll probably find some other ways to poke people with how they might be able to control their system and make it sound better to them.
Is there, in that respect, is there like even the things that you can't possibly do? Is there more things that you'd like to poke a stick at in that regard? Even if they're not a product that's like right on the boiling point here.
There's some others. I mean, I think a lot of the stuff we're doing, or we are, truly finally working on some controls that have, that audiophiles have never had before, and I expect you'll probably see something, in that realm where, if you ever hear me, kind of comment that, I don't understand why D to D converters are important or interesting or whatever. Wouldn't you rather have it do something? If you're going to be resampling, and no one's really picked up on that yet. But eventually they will, and we'll see. We should be able to eventually provide some controls you never expected to have, some of which will be very interesting, and a lot of which people will probably say, "Oh, you're crazy again." That's fine. I mean, if you want to pursue audio purity, that's great, but you are going to be at the mercy of the recording. And to me, the worst thing is like, I have the best sounding system in the world for 14 recordings. It's like, no, I want to listen to everything.
And I would just like to bring up one of the things that you poked the bear at that I think is rare and beautiful was the Gadget a few years back. We haven't spoke about that in years now, but there was a product that kind of tackled this idea they do in recording artists sometimes about everything being in tune at 440 and that not being exactly correct. And this was something that kind of toyed with a very rare, unusual segment of the recording population that never comes into the fold for audiophiles. But that was a really interesting one in my book. So if you guys, there's a video out there about it, but if you don't remember that thing, that was definitely an obscure, beautiful little piece of an attempt.
And that is certainly one of the things we're looking at. That has been on hold for a long time, mainly due to processing limitations. Now there's a whole new series of DSPs that are much faster than the old ones, and I don't think anyone would be all that excited about a pitch shifter that is it's fantastic, but guess what, it's limited to 48K, and each time you go up 2x, the processing requirements go up 4x.
Wow.
So to actually be able to reach 352, 384, it wasn't in the cards back then. Now it is, but also a lot of other new interesting things that we've been working on that you've never seen before. A lot of new interesting knobs. So, and by knobs I mean knobs. It's not going to be a fucking app, okay? It is not going to be another friggin' app. I'm done So done with apps. So anyway, well, yeah, you may be able to sit with it, but it's not going to be on your phone or on your iPad. So.
We have a question that says, how do you control the volume difference between different channels? E.g., your center surrounds might have a different sensitivity than your mains.
Correct. There's two knobs, one for center, one for surround. So you basically
There's a gain, yeah.
Yep.
All right. How would I integrate the Loki into a Sin?
You do the Loki either before or after the Sin. Probably after if you have multiple sources.
There was definitely a shout out to the ELAC you guys have out there.
Yep.
A bunch of people in the comments said they also have ELAC. Is that what you consider? I mean, obviously you consider it a good pairing because you have it on display here. Is that what someone asked what you have in your home theater at home? Is there another brand that you'd recommend?
The home theater I have at home, one of them is full custom. I did all the speakers. The other one is kind of a mongrelized thing that's a mixture of Zoo and Klipsch, mainly because Zoo will kill me for saying this. Mainly because they have some of the same characteristics. They integrate fairly well together, and they're high efficiency. We have done full surround with Klipsch. It's a particular flavor. You might like it, you might not. ELAC is great because it's neutral, and it's a little soft. And I think that's my taste, is a little soft rather than a little harsh. We actually have an alternate system we may bring in here. It's based on triangle speakers, and those are that's brighter, more forward, but also more efficient. If you're going to be using low power amps, if you're going to be using records or Yaller horns, you got to think about efficiency. If not, then no big. I mean, if you got tons of power to burn, go ahead and use whatever you'd like.
This question is a little vague, but I'll ask it anyways. The question is can you plug an empty plug-in and get that effect on the RCA outs for an external headphone amp? So I think what he's asking is, can you use the USB in and then RCA outs to another external thing?
Yes, you can from the mains.
Okay, through the mains. Through the mains.
Oh, except we defeat we defeat all the outputs. Theoretically, you could get it, but as soon as you plug in headphones, all the outputs are defeated. Yeah. So that would be like a firmware thing. It's something if you really want to try it, contact us, and it'd probably be an easy firmware thing, and tell us how you like it. A lot of people are gonna flip if they're hearing speakers and headphones at the same time, but if that's what you're interested in, that's worth us exploring.
This is reverting back to what we were talking about on the horizon. Are there any electrostatic energizers in the pipeline?
No, I don't like them.
Oh, that's an easy one.
It's I think it's a solved thing, and there are many ways to do it, most of which are not wonderful. The ones that are right are expensive and dangerous. So
you mean like physically dangerous?
Dangerous to our employees, because
wow.
If you're handling something that has a couple thousand volts potential on it, you actually got to think about that. Once it's boxed up in a chassis and someone's using it, as long as you're not using it in the bathtub, should be fine.
More questions about things on the horizon. When will we see a LISST, a list for the Monier?
No, I don't think we're going to bring that back. We're not really doing a lot of small tube products except Bailey right now.
Can you give us an update on the tube situation? Because I know we talked about that in a previous show. Yeah. Has anything changed or evolved?
Tubes are actually reasonably gettable. Right now, the catch is, the big catch for a lot of people is, the gettable tubes are typically Russian tubes. I understand if someone does not want to use those. But for us, they're the most easily gettable right now. So we keep talking to the Chinese, Lin Lai and stuff to see if we can get some alternates. But there's not a lot of stuff out there. And so supply is okay, We typically have them in stock. As long as you're okay with Russian stock, we're good. If you're not, I get it. And unfortunately, yeah, maybe, tell us to do a better solid state product. I might listen to you.
If you guys have any more questions, shoot. We're going to wrap up here pretty soon, but if you have any more questions you want to ask Jason, we are available for questions. So throw them in the comment section there, and I will get them to him. Let's see. Is there anything on the horizon that you can hint at that's way out in left field, or any?
If we're real lucky this year, meaning December 31st, you might see one or two really interesting things. So I know we've showed both of them in various forms and kind of hinted at them, but I think you might see some really nifty digital stuff coming out.
Do you have any fun tube anecdotes where you like a particular brand, like someone's commenting that the Gold Lion or anything like that? In your exploration with tubes, do you have a preference or a favorite brand or anything that you'd recommend?
Yeah, I tend to not be super adventurous. I typically use the production tubes we got because I don't want to get too crazy. Mike did force upon me once. He's like, you have to have this Western Electric 396A, mini tube, and you got to use it in your Valley. I'm like, so it's like a $350 tube in a Valley. And he's like, yeah, it's fantastic. Right. It's fantastic. I'm like, you're crazy. It sounds really good, no kidding. But it's like the time we had a $12,000 phono cartridge. We played it and we went, yeah, that's really good. And we went back to the $350 one. It's like, it's fine. But anything that makes me nervous about using it, I don't want to do it. It's like, you want to drive a $200,000 or $300,000 car every day and worry about where you park it? That's crazy. Every time you use the tube, oh my God, I got to measure the microseconds it's on. Yeah, so I'm not real crazy about it.
So we're getting blasted with a lot of questions about what about this, what about that, what about this. I'll try to filter through some of these guys, but we discussed this in the past. The tube phono preamp. I've been hitting.
We actually showed it. We showed a old tube phono preamp concept at a meet that we did in Corpus, and that's something that I could consider on a limited basis. I don't know if we want to have it in the line all the time, but that might be fun because that'd be moderately priced. It would use 6N1P tubes, which we have a ton of. Again, Russian, so hey, again, just full transparency. But yeah, that would be an interesting product. A higher end phono preamp in general is interesting. I asked people for some input on that a while back, and I wouldn't be surprised if you saw something.
And then we've talked about this in the past too, but I still think it's interesting to ask again. Anything planned in the portable market, like a Dragonfly competitor? From AudioQuest has one of those.
We thought about it. I don't know if there's anything we can really add to that other than make it look nifty and make it aluminum or something. But I don't. There's not a lot of excitement about that.
I guess this is interesting in terms of going back to the Sin. There's a question here about the design idea for the Sin being. Is there also? The first question is, will there be a silver Sin?
No.
The answer is no.
Yeah.
And then the second question is, why no presets? So I think a lot of typical surround sound processors use like Hall B, Hall C, Hall, use a click of a button. This one is mostly, as you had already said, knob-based fine tuning. That's obviously a conscious decision. Is there any reason why you chose not to do a preset kind of?
Have you ever used one of these things with presets?
Yes, I have, and they're all terrible.
Yeah. It's because they all suck. Exactly what you said. They're all horrible.
Terrible.
Yeah, it's like.
Yeah. And I clicked on every processor I ever had. I hit every single one, and I was like, "This is full-on garbage."
Yeah, it's also a lot of it is synthetic, DSP, reverb, stuff like that. We're not synthesizing anything. We're not faking anything.
Reverb.
It's not doing anything like that. So yeah, it's just extracting what is already there.
let's see here. Oh, with presets, he means memory for personal modes.
If it had fully, if all the controls were motorized, yeah, it makes sense.
Okay.
Unfortunately, they aren't. So the main volume is, but the rest of it, you have to either use the kid remote or the spouse remote to change those from your chair.
I think, guys, we're about running. Jason, anything you kind of... I'll let Jason kind of wrap it up, and if you have any more questions, shoot them out now or forever hold your pieces. Jason, anything to kind of...
No, again, thank you for listening to me blather about stuff for, 50 minutes. I hope people enjoy Sin. I hope people enjoy what we're doing. If not, let us know. We do hear, and we do respond. Sin to me is a really interesting product, but if you're worried about this being like a diversion, it's not. The next products we're doing are 2-channel. Eventually it will be doing more phono stuff, things like that. I like doing a lot of different things. Mm-hmm. Heck, the next 2 products we're doing, one is digital and one is headphone. Mm-hmm. So, it's back to the roots. I still love headphones, still use them all the time, but of course, I'm going to explore other things. And Sin is the kind of the end game exploration for me. Unless it's so popular, I got to do a bigger one. Don't get excited about that. That's a lot of crazy town work if you want to do that right.
This person has kind of an interesting comment. What about VU meters? Any type of meter? There's not much on the NAMP.
No.
A boppin meter? No.
You could probably talk me into doing an e-paper display on the amp that actually gave you like status and stuff like that. I do like e-paper just because it's low power and it stays. And it's not ugly or offensive, but I have to think about that a bit. We have microprocessors and a lot of stuff. We could probably start being a little more verbose. I just don't want to have volume equals 89.3 and all these things that don't really say much. But it's an interesting concept. Yeah. You're not going to do VU meters on e-paper. That'd be the slowest ones in the world.
Yeah. I do think, too, from a design perspective, there's a sense of minimalism among the external design that is kind of betrayed by having a giant, gorgeous, or even whatever meter about it. So I like the fact that you're going the paper route because it would be, I at least when I think about it, it would be so out of place to have, what would be really funny is if you did the Manny with just a giant, the D'Agostino's type, watch dial on it and charge, an extra $20K for it.
Oh, we do have something coming out that has a lot of LEDs on the front. And our developers, since they're not tied to any relays, they're actually, they're separate out of the microprocessor. He's like, oh, can I make them do the Cylon thing? So they actually go back and forth when you turn
on. Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, knock yourself out. It's fine. So we might leave that. But it's not exactly communicative. It's just silly.
I think we just dated ourselves with that one. But I knew exactly what you're talking about, the Cylon. That's a throwback.
Now, if we could actually take the micro and put a little sound file in there, by your command, that'd be fantastic. So
as long as you didn't add some danger arms on the side that came out.
Well, with all the AI stuff that's going down these days, I don't know. It might be a little freaky because the one guy was saying, oh yeah, you can make the LEDs change to red, just randomly, and then do the scroll and then by your command. And I'm like, I don't know. It might not be all that much funnier, than you think in a few years. So.
Well, one of the designers' names is Dave. I was just thinking, but it was a 2001 AI voice, just the red thing, and it says, "Hey, Dave. Hello, Dave."
Sorry, Dave. I can't do that
right now.
Yeah. Oh God, no.
That's the only thing it does. It keeps telling you can't do it. That's the only function. That'd be great. There's
there's certain audio companies that would probably put that in a box and charge $3,000 for it. Just saying. I won't name names, but we all know who I'm thinking about.
What about William asked? What about a SET speaker amp?
Doubtful. We don't know much about transformer coupled tube amps, so I doubt that's going to happen.
Okay, I think that's it. We'll wrap it up. Hey, everybody, thanks for joining on the stream here today. And I think that's it.
And we'll do it again in 2 months. This time we'll have actual switching for the Syn, so you can really compare. I do want to give Atmos a chance. We want to use the microphone setup and everything. It's just, ugh.